couple of things before we get started is that I'm going to go through the agenda of what today's training is, and also just give a reminder for anyone who wants to understand about what's going to happen in the future, just kind of set things up so that we are all on the same page and expectations can be met. Then I will go through the demo of what the content that I prepared for today. And then I think probably since we have such a large group, I would say let's save questions for the end so that I can get through the content and really give you guys a nice chunk of time to address anything that came up during the demo. And then we'll address your questions, and then I'll just reiterate our next steps and yeah, what will be coming down the line. So if that works for everyone, today we are going to be tackling 3 different areas in via TRM. The first is the traveler experience. So what does it look like for a traveler to go through VIA, to create an account? Margaret, I'm getting a lot of feedback, and I'm wondering if that's coming from me. Anyone? Okay, I think hopefully that the feedback seems to have gone away. Okay, great. So it's not on my end. So like I was saying, the first thing that we're going to go through is the traveler journey. I think it makes a lot of sense to understand how students come into via TRM, how they can interact with their data, how they can move forward in the process, and really embark on their journey. So that's the first kind of pillar that we're going to address. The second is the traveler profile, which is really the keeper of all of the data that's related to that traveler. So after we go through the experiences, we'll see where everything is kept that's related to that traveler. And then finally, we'll round out the session with going through the traveler dashboard, which is where, from an admin standpoint, they can see every single traveler that's in the account. So more broad, kind of zoomed out view, and really address the power and go through the functionality that will be of use to you in many different workflows. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen, and I just want to let everyone know that I have never used Teams before. So this is someone that works for a technology company, is learning new technology, and I'm definitely for it. So here we go. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. If anyone can't, go off mute and give me a shout. So this is the first screen that a student sees when they either are invited or they create their own account in via TRM. So they'll click Get Started. I chose a traveler who has data already so that you can see kind of what the data looks like filled out. But of course, a traveler is going to see blank fields and they'll fill it out to the best of their ability. So what's your name? Where are you a citizen? You know, we definitely want to know that information. Traveler type, are you in undergrad? Are you post-grad? Are you in high school? You know, it's definitely very helpful to kind of put students in specific buckets so that you can know how to best help them. What's your home institution? I think definitely for the whole USG system, I think this question is definitely very relevant and important, since, you know, there are definitely over 20 of you, I'm pretty sure. So It's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. So yeah, where do you currently attend? Now, those are some of the demographic information. Now we're going to get into more psychographic information, which is going to be extremely helpful, not only in understanding where a student's coming from, but also being able to prepare as an advisor, as an administrator, to help the student go through their journey. So in this question, they indicate what questions, excuse me, or concerns they have. And they can choose as many as they want, but it's really self-reflecting question for them to answer. Next, financial info. You know, how are students planning on paying for the program? Is it going to be out of pocket, financial aid? You know, what's going to be at play as far as the financials? Next is nailing down into a finer area is, do you receive financial aid? So trying to understand how you can best advise the student from there. Travel goals and motivations. You know, I think this is also a part of the psychographic question lineup, is that why a student is motivated to study abroad will inevitably help you to point them in the right direction or give them guidance towards programs that would be really good fits. So again, they can select all that apply, and they can keep moving forward. Next is previous travel experience. Have they been outside their home country? You know, there are certain subsets of students that have never left their hometown, and we want to be able to prepare those students just as much as we want to prepare those who are more well-traveled and have had the opportunity already to get outside. Next is passport. So this just kind of gives you an indication of where the student is starting from as far as their documentation needed to go somewhere. So this is a really great question. And then finally, participation certainty. What is the likelihood that you are going to go away? You know, what are the chances that you'll study abroad? And these choices are all preset by us, but we think it really provides a nice overview as to where students could be. And I just want to point out to all of you that students can indicate that they're just curious. And really, something that I think via TRM, one of the things that via TRM kept in mind when they were kind of building this product is, how can we best support and guide students that are super motivated, who know where they want to go, or they know what they want to do, or what they want to accomplish, all the way to the students who have no idea, and they come to your office and they say, well, I think I want to study abroad. And then the age-old kind of conversation begins of, well, where do you want to go? Or what do you want to do? And the student could say, well, I'm not really sure. What are my options? So these questions really help tease out data that is self-reported and can be of huge value to you, both understanding the student and advising in the future. So this is what's called traveler intake. Now, those are the questions that are kind of setting the student up so that you can get to know them better. Now, this next experience, which is called program match, this experience really guides them to thinking more in detail about, well, where do they want to go? What do they want to do? What do they want to accomplish? So program match is the next step. Just as a reminder, both of these experiences are not required. We do not block students from studying abroad if they don't fill out this information. They could fill out a couple questions, click cancel, and be on their way. So we don't pigeonhole students from answering these questions if they don't feel comfortable, or maybe they just don't want to answer. So I just wanted to point out that if the student does know the program that they want to go on, they have an out here. However, we're going to go through the program match because it's definitely valuable. So first things first is program type. Maybe students know what type of program they want to go on. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But again, this kind of multi-select option where they can say, you know, I want to go on something. Now, something that I want to point out that is extremely timely right now is that we now have the ability to indicate that a program is virtual, which allows students to say, well, I'm interested in virtual programs. Maybe with all that's happened in the world with the pandemic, maybe they are most comfortable in going on a virtual program, and you have the ability to, they have the ability to self-select if that's something that they're interested in. Next is ideal program length. How long do I want to go abroad? Where is my minimum and where is my maximum? So these sliders allow you to indicate what that time period is. Next is travel terms, which, you know, at this point, we're looking farther out with all of the preparations that are being done from the impacts of the coronavirus. So this is really timely information to have. And students can indicate more than one term, you know, as many as they want. Level of support. This is another great question that ties into risk management. You know, do they want to be extremely supported? Maybe they want to have some person that is constantly available. Maybe a faculty-led program would be best suited for them. Or, you know, maybe they're very independent and they are not nervous about needing a lot of support. Maybe an exchange. Well, here's where they'll tell you, you know, I think I'd like to have this type of support while abroad. Language immersion, which is probably one of my favorite questions because I am a lover of foreign languages and speaker of several. So, you know, do you want to go on a program that you're going to be completely immersed in a foreign language? Amy Poehler said no, but if it was Leslie Laguna, definitely would have said yes. Next question is country. Maybe they already have an idea where they'd like to go, and they can choose all that apply. Housing. What type of housing are they going to be comfortable with? You know, if a program only has a host family and they don't feel great about staying with a family that maybe doesn't speak their language, they'll indicate that they don't want to be with a host family. Maybe they prefer to be in a private apartment or a shared apartment with their colleagues. Next is subject areas. This is another really great question where you can try to nail down what a student is interested in studying while abroad. And it's an extremely comprehensive list that students can choose from. And this is, you know, it's available for all of our VIA TRM clients as kind of a standard list. So again, students will select all subject areas to them. And then finally, this is probably the ultimate question at the end. In all of the different things that you've now just answered and provided your feedback on, what are your priorities in what order? You know, for me, language would be my top priority because I am always motivated in learning languages. However, for some students, maybe it's level of support, or maybe housing with, comfortability of being around others now that, travel and movement has been compromised. So this is where, this is kind of the final question of priorities. So we'll click next. Okay, now we land on the program dashboard. So this is where students see all of the programs that USG has in their account. Now, of course, we're not in USG's account, just as a disclaimer. We're in our demo environment so that I could have access to the traveler information. However, this is exactly what the traveler will see at USG. All of the different programs that are available with all of these filters on the left-hand side where they can say, show me all of the language immersion programs. And you can see that there's this % match so that students can understand, well, based on all of the questions that I answered and all of the things that are important to me, these 4 programs are the highest match. With the algorithm, the VIA TRM algorithm, they have paired me with these specific programs. So it's something that that visually students can be affirmed in, okay, this program really is fit for my needs, for my desires, for my concerns, etc. They can favorite a program and look at their favorites whenever they want. And then really they have the ability, if they click into a program, they have the ability to see what the content is. So they have the ability to apply and kind of see the basic information that you as an admin set up from your end. So they can also see what terms are available. They can share this program with their friend, maybe, or they want to send it to their mom. They say, I'm gonna show my mom what this program is all about. They can utilize these shareable links, which will give anyone who does not have a VIA TRM account the ability to see this content behind a login. They also have the ability to ask a question. Maybe there's a specific question that kind of came up and they're not seeing any content that speaks to that question. They can ask a question right from here. So this is what students see from the program brochure standpoint. They have all of that information. They can see courses. There are different hyperlinks that go to the website if that's necessary. There are some documents that they can download. Maybe they want to see what the estimated costs are. So they can download that content that was uploaded. They can see the terms and the cost. So this is maybe just an estimate of what those costs are, whereas these costs go into a little bit more detail. They can see what's included, what items can they count on with going to this program. I know that I'm going to be picked up from the airport. However, what I cannot count on is that my airfare is paid for by my university. So this is a lot of good information for them to see in a more visual way. Level of support, of course, eligibility, and financial aid. What students have available to them in order to move forward with this program. I'm going to click apply now because I'd like to show you what it looks like for students to start an application. So they have the ability to revisit what eligibility requirements are in place for this particular program. They then can select what terms are available that have an application attached. And so this, I didn't even know this. This now information says that this program is very competitive with limited capacity, and that I'm going to need to select alternates as backups in case this program fills up. So a lot of really great information, kind of setting the student up for success. By GDPR with the checkbox and then next. And this starts their application. So I just want to kind of quickly show you what the application looks like. Here's an introduction. Here's some traveler information. So all of this information was on Amy's traveler profile, and we're going to take a look at that right now. So this is just an example of what an application could look like. It's pretty lengthy, but anyway, that's what a traveler application looks like. We're just going to click save and exit because I am not going to fill out that information right now, but where we land on the traveler profile, which is what I told everyone in the beginning. This is the keeper, the holder of all of the traveler data. So we started an application, so therefore we landed on the application tab in the traveler profile. And you can see that Amy is an extremely busy and very motivated study abroad hopeful participant, that she has a lot of incomplete applications submitted. She has a couple submitted, and she already went abroad twice to the same program. She loved teaching English in Thailand, and she was transferred. So this is really the collection of all of the applications that Amy has taken part in starting the process and then moving through. All of these headers refer to all of the application statuses that we have in via TRM, and it's organized in this way so that you can see, you know, all of the incomplete applications are up at the top so that students see these are the things that I need to work on, or not if they don't want to move forward. And they move down the process of, okay, I've submitted, I'm waiting until an admin reviews my application, and then there are these subsequent statuses that give the student more information as to where they are in the process, which really lands finally on being committed. So is the student 100% going on this program? And if so, then they are committed to it. So that's the view of the application tab. And we're going to get into a little bit more from the admin perspective, but I just wanted to show everyone that after you start an application, this is where you land. Once the student has committed to their program and term, they then have the ability to fill out forms. So as we talked about before, you know, Amy had multiple programs that she was committed to, and therefore she has a lot of forms to fill out for those particular programs and terms. You can also see the programs that she has engaged with, and these interested programs are ones that she favorited. And then she is not in any other stage. Events, you can see what events she's been involved with. So all of these past events and nothing in the future. the program preferences information. So this information actually refers to all of the screens that we went through originally to kind of get to this point. So Amy can, or any student can go back and see what information they self-reported. And if they need to edit any of their preferences, they can do so again. So this is just a collection of all of their information. Another 2 tabs to go through is traveler info. So this, as I said, is the collection of all information related to this traveler. Students are not required to fill out this information. They are, the information is there for them to fill out if they so choose, but it's not required. And as you saw when we started the application, there was a lot of information that was already filled out. Well, if the student has the information that you're requesting on the application, they have that filled out in their traveler profile here, any of that information will auto-populate onto the application so that it makes it easier for the student. So it's very beneficial for students to have information kind of already filled out in their traveler profile, so that kind of saves them a step when they go to fill out their application or their form. So again, all of their academic information, their contact information, emergency contact, and passport and visa. So everything is kind of collapsed so that you can pick out what information you'd like to take a look at any given time. And then finally, we have the Messages tab. So this is actually very similar to an SMS type of format, where you can see the history, the historical thread between any admin and the traveler. So as you can see, the admin, Dave Fincher, reached out to Amy a couple of times. She hasn't been very diligent with responding, but this is Dave's attempt to reach out to her. So, and if she'd like to respond to Dave, she can do so at any time by filling out this information. So that is what the traveler journey and the traveler perspective looks like. We're going to now move into the admin view of the operation. Okay, so this is the admin view of the account, and I know that Margaret has done a lot in the last several days with getting everyone access as support users. So your view of USG's account will be similar, but of course a little bit different in color and numbers and of course travelers. But this is the traveler dashboard. This is where you can access any student's information for any student that's in the account. And since we've been talking about Amy Poehler and we just reviewed the traveler profile, I'm going to click into her to show you what the admin sees. So the setup is very similar to the traveler view, except for there are some key differences that will aid you in your processes and your journey in being the admin that is different from the traveler's view and what they need to do in order to go on their journey. So as you can see, this kind of top portion, this header, where if you can see for the traveler view, is much different. So there's a lot more information that you can pick out at a quick glance maybe in an advising conversation or the traveler gives you a quick call. This is some quick hit information that you can get to without having to comb through all of the many data fields that are associated with the traveler. Admins have the ability to see the message thread, and they can message the traveler at any point. They also have the ability to add notes. Now, this is an extremely valuable piece of functionality in that these notes are not visible to travelers. So they're admin view only. Maybe you have a really sensitive advising conversation, or maybe a parent gives you a call and wants to address concerns. You can add that information in the notes tab to kind of keep that on file in regards to that particular traveler.
Can I say one thing about that real quick, Leslie?
Yes.
Since we have a lot of people with access to everyone's application, I just want to make sure they know that anyone who has access to that application will see those notes. So it's not just a personal note-taking space if you don't want other administrators to see sensitive information.
That's a really good point, Margaret, and definitely something that I need to keep in mind as we go through this content. You know, everyone is in the account as a support user, so you all have the same permissions. You can see everything that everyone else can see. So exactly like Margaret said, if you put a note, any other administrator would have access to seeing that note. So keeping that in mind. Programs, you can see the same exact programs that we saw on Amy's view. So again, kind of looking at the journey of all of these different headings, which we refer to them as tracking steps, which I will go through when we head back to the traveler dashboard. Next, we have access to the applications, which again are separated by all of the different application statuses that we have in Via TRM. So you can take a look at any information in regards to any of these statuses. You can take a look, maybe you just got off the phone with Amy and she said, oh, I started this application to University of Copenhagen. Take a look at what I added so far. So you have the ability to look at the content that Amy has inputted and either make any changes to this content or change the status of the application, which we're not going to get into that information right now because we're going to save that for another training session, going more in depth into applications and forms. So if you have a lot of questions kind of circling your mind right now, hold on to them and we will get in much greater detail when we talk through traveler applications and forms. Moving along, we have the ability to see Amy's pre-departure forms, just like we could when we were looking at her view of her traveler profile, her events, so anything that she engaged with in the past, her traveler info, which this information is almost exactly like what you saw in the traveler view, except for one key difference: custom fields. So there are over 90 fields in these headings, under these headings, that VIA has built specifically for a particular purpose. However, we understand that there are probably some pieces of information that that VIA did not create a designated field for, but you'd still like to collect that information. So if you can take a look at these examples that we have in our demo environment, you can see that there are several fields that an admin can fill out and can kind of check to see if they need to add any more information. So, for example, dietary restrictions. If a student comes into your office and expresses concerns about, their program and not being able to find something to eat because of their dietary restrictions or their or limitations, you have the ability to indicate that on behalf of the traveler. And also, because the traveler doesn't have viewing access to this information, you can add more sensitive information in regards to maybe the judicial review. Maybe you'd like to indicate that a student right off the bat is in good judicial standing or not. So that's something that you can utilize with custom fields. And I think Margaret from the broad spectrum of the USG account would be able to create those custom fields for your use. So that is custom fields. And then program preferences, exactly the content that we went through together initially is all right here for the admin to take a look at. So if a student goes through both experiences or one experience, the admin has the ability to see what that content that they have self-indicated is, and they can move forward with interacting based on that particular content. So that is the traveler profile from the admin's point of view. Now, heading back to the traveler dashboard to kind of really tie it all together, this dashboard is the collection of every single traveler and all of their profiles. So as you can see, there are 64 travelers in this environment, and all of them are within these particular tracking steps. So these circles we refer to as tracking steps. Let's go through what tracking steps are and how they can be of use to you. So first things first is interested. When a student comes into via TRM, they create an account and they're still looking at programs, they have not done anything or taken any action to start an application, VIA considers them as interested. Now, this bucket is really interesting because it's really the first attempt of a student kind of coming in and testing the waters, getting more information, looking at program brochures, maybe favoriting some, maybe asking some questions, reviewing the content that's on the program brochure. So this interested bucket is definitely something to keep in mind as you're really nurturing students. And I think that, I know I keep saying that certain pieces of certain functionalities and features are really timely, especially now with all that has happened in the last several months. Study abroad, students are going to need to understand what the value is. So the interested tracking step will be very helpful for you so that you can really help nurture the students from the moment that they enter the account up until they hopefully study abroad and they come back from being abroad. So that's the interested tracking step. Next is the applying tracking step. So as I mentioned, interested, they don't have any applications started. They're just kind of looking around and browsing. As soon as a traveler starts an application in VIA, we automatically move them to applying. So these tracking steps are extremely dynamic. They change as programs arrive and pass. So this information is extremely up to date and current based on what is happening in your program portfolio. So all of the students that are applying to future programs, they're filling out their required information, they're submitting their applications, they're in this kind of first phase. And again, maybe really nurturing students in this stage would be helpful as well, as they might have questions, or maybe there's something that's blocking them from moving forward. So that's the applying tracking step. Next is pre-departure. So for any person who is unfamiliar with how students kind of move through the process, a student starts an application, they fill out all required information and submit it. The admin then has the ability to review all of the content that was submitted and make a decision whether or not this student is fit to go on that particular program and is accepted. Once an administrator accepts their application by way of changing the application status to accepted, students then have the ability to commit to that program and term. Why is commitment so important? Commitment then ties into this tracking step, where as soon as the application status changes to committed, the student then enters automatically the pre-departure tracking step, so that you can understand what part of the process students are at in. They've been accepted, they've committed to their program, they're filling out all of their pre-departure forms, and they're waiting for their program to start. So that's pre-departure. Next is on-site. So this is extremely valuable for risk management purposes, so that you can understand who is abroad, who is actually in country right now. And this tracking step uses information that the program brochure gives them by way of a start date that says, okay, on that particular start date, students are automatically going to move into this on-site tracking step. So as a reminder, every single one of these tracking steps so far, there isn't a manual update of, okay, now the student is in this stage and I need to manually update their tracking step. No, it's based on specific actions that are taken either by the traveler or by the administrator in the account. When a program ends, so the end date passes for that particular program, they then move into alumni, which this can be a great tracking step to engage past students for reentry, or maybe you want to collect testimonials, you want to do some sort of feedback survey to try to understand how you can improve the program next year, or really what worked. So that's the alumni tracking step. And finally, the deferred, withdrawn, closed, which is really more or less a catch-all for all of the rest of the students, or the applications, I should say, that were not moved forward with. So if a traveler defers their application, or they withdraw their application, or maybe they started it but they didn't want to move forward, they then move into this tracking step, which kind of gives you an understanding of how many of those students are not moving forward. Now, I really spoke about these tracking steps as singular entities, kind of their own bubble. However, because students, they interact with certain programs and they have the ability to start more than one application, maybe even go on more than one study abroad program, they have the ability to exist in multiple tracking steps at any given point. So these numbers are not merely just a total of the number of travelers. It really gives you an idea of what travelers are in which step that can be multiple steps at any given time. So that is tracking steps. Next is filters on the left-hand side of the screen, which is very similar to all of our dashboards where filtering is available. So these are referred to as filter groups. So if you expand a filter group, you can interact with any of the filters that are associated with that group. So here are profile filters, academic filters, intake filters. So maybe you want to interact with content that the traveler indicated during their traveler intake experience. So as an example, maybe you're an admin and you'd like to see, well, how many students have indicated a barrier to be cost? So I selected that and I'm going to click filter travelers. So I can see from my filtered list that 13 travelers are concerned about cost, and dynamically where those students are in the tracking step process. So you have the ability to interact with them or maybe update their content at any given time. So you can interact with multiple filters, whatever filters you are trying to nail down to find a specific group, you have that ability. So maybe you want to look at, can you show me via all of the students who are concerned about cost, but maybe want to learn a language? You can filter travelers, and now you can see that of those 13 students, 8 of them are also interested in learning a language. So I, as kind of the product expert and the person who has seen a lot of different clients interact with this information, I definitely think that this intake information as well as this program preference information is a gold mine of data that you can interact with, take action on, and move forward with understanding where the traveler is coming from and how to best advise them moving forward. Really having that rich conversation right from the start. So I encourage all of you to take a look at maybe a couple students after we get off this call and just see how you can play around with and understand how you can best utilize this program preferences and intake information on the traveler dashboard. Now, of course, you also have the ability to filter based on applications and forms. However, I'm going to save that information for another time because we're going to go more in depth on particularly the application dashboard. So that's going to give us a much deeper display into how we can interact with application data, and then moving forward, form data. So once you are done with your filters, you can click Clear All, which will kind of land you back at your original starting point, your full traveler count. And you have the ability to maybe save a filter. Maybe there's a specific group that you are trying to filter for on a consistent basis. So utilizing and saving filters will be helpful for you to save some clicks. Now, something that I want to mention to all of you is that filters are saved based on the admin's account. It is not Margaret is going to, save these filters and they're going to be available for all of you. You create your own filters based on your own particular groups and cohorts that you're looking for. So it's individual to you in your account. You have the ability to sort multiple in different ways. Maybe you want to visualize all of your travelers in a specific order. And you can also search for travelers. You can search by their first name or their student ID, maybe their email address or their last name or their preferred first name. So this search bar is pretty comprehensive to try to help you find the traveler that you're looking for. You also have 2 batch actions available on this dashboard. The first being messaging a traveler, and the second being adding content to custom fields, which, to kind of reiterate what we talked about when we were looking at the admin view of traveler profile, custom fields are admin view only. So if there's specific content that you'd like to add for a specific traveler or a specific subset of travelers, you can do so on the traveler dashboard in batch action. So maybe you talk to these 3 students, they came to your office and they said, we're really concerned about our dietary restrictions because we're all vegetarian. You can go ahead and add content to all 3 of these travelers, which will all appear in their traveler profile. So this is something that you can do in batch. The other piece is messaging, which we're actually not going to get into great detail today because I'd like to speak a little bit more robustly about messaging, how you can interact, what you can do with the information that is self-indicated by the traveler from traveler intake, from program matching. So we're going to talk about that at a later time, but you do have the ability to message a traveler from this dashboard. Next, we have the ability to invite a traveler. So maybe there's someone that comes to your office and says, I really want to check out all the programs that you have. And you say, well, you can create an account, or you can just send that traveler an invitation, which would send an email to their inbox, really inviting them and kind of starting that excitement, drumming up that excitement to start their journey. So you have that ability from this dashboard. And then finally, you have the ability to generate a report, which we are not going to get into today because reporting is very, very robust, and I definitely like to go through each and every one of these standard report types so that you can understand how to best pull information and where to best pull that information. So just know that you do have the ability to generate a report from this dashboard. So that really kind of wraps up all of the content that I had prepared today regarding the traveler journey, the traveler profile, and the traveler dashboard. And I think now would be a great time to address any questions that came up. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can take a look at all of you.
Maybe if everyone wants to turn your camera back on so we can all see each other again. And Leslie, that was so helpful and so wonderful. So thank you so much for going through all that. And yeah, just I think people can raise hands or just come off mute and talk. Any questions that you guys have?
What's on everyone's mind? Oh, Carla.
Yes. Thanks, Leslie. So I really appreciated that part about my programs, and I really kind of caught on later than maybe I should have, because I remember writing Margaret once and going, wait a minute, where are these students? Because they're gone, but they're still in a program.
Yes.
And I think if I had been more in touch with that and said, oh, okay, it's like a whole other bucket or well or tracking, these students are actually interested in 4 programs, Carla. So, you want to treat them a little differently, like maybe compare and contrast. I want them in the best place. So I just really appreciated you going over that particular part. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad. Definitely, the tabs in the traveler profile were designed to give you similar yet different views of how the student is moving through the process and where you can either provide guidance or follow up and take action yourself. So I'm glad that was helpful. Who else? Laura, I see that you have your hand raised.
It's so goofy, the whole hand raising thing, but it really does work.
I know. I know.
So I wanted to make sure I understood correctly, because I think sometimes getting students over the hump of like, oh, if I sign up, if I log in, if I create a profile, I'm committing to something.
Right.
So I want to make sure that the right words are coming out of my mouth and how we talk about this.
Okay.
So doing that initial, like putting your email and make a password makes them interested, right?
That's
in terms
correct.
of those categories.
Yes.
Okay. And applying is they've actually started an application.
That's correct.
And it's easy enough, I suppose, to say, well, you're not really committed until you've paid money. But for our tracking purposes, if we really emphasize, put yourself in the system, so we're in the system, so we can follow up with you, that'll help us and it'll help them.
For sure. For sure. And something else that I actually, that just made me think about the tracking steps in particular is that, as I said during my explanation, those tracking steps are dynamic. So those numbers are changing all the time. As soon as, programs and new programs, you add future terms, and students are starting to apply to those future programs. All of those students who were kind of involved in the past, as you're going through multiple cycles, they're all going to be flushed out and either moving through applying pre-departure on-site alumni, or they'll just head to that, deferred, withdrawn, closed tracking step. So from an admin perspective, you have the most up-to-date information that is only for future terms.
Right. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I also want to know how it is that you and Cassandra appear to be the same person.
Who is Cassandra? Cassandra, anyone?
I don't know her either, so I'm just being ridiculous, but it's striking to me because on my screen, your faces are one on top of the other, and you look like twins.
Well, hi, Cassandra, my other twin. Yeah, that's funny. My screen looks a little bit different. Like I said, I've never used Teams before, so this is all new, but that's funny.
Thank you.
Of course. Any more questions? Please don't be shy. I love answering questions.
I have one thing to just point out that will maybe spark some more questions too, but on the tracking steps, when Leslie was showing us how they go through accepted to committed, I'll still be the only one who's accepting students' applications. So you guys don't have to worry about like reviewing and seeing if they've paid and seeing if they've got their recommendation from their rep and all that stuff. So I'll still be accepting their applications. And what I normally do, because for our purposes, there isn't a huge difference between accepted and committed. There's really actually no difference other than they go to pre-departure. Mm-hmm. So what I usually do is give them 24 hours, maybe a couple days to click commit, because that's kind of like a fun step for the students to be able to say like, yes, I'm accepted, I'm going, I'm clicking commit. But for those who don't do that, I usually just bulk move them to committed within a couple days. So you won't see very many people in accepted for a long period of time because they have to be in committed in order to start filling out their pre-departure forms and everything. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's just kind of an FYI, and don't worry about, am I going to have to move people across stages, because I'll be the only person still doing that.
That's definitely a good point, and I think that is a really good measure to take as students are really moving down the funnel. So I know that the typical kind of marketing funnel of filling the top of the funnel with interest and then kind of students moving down, that area going from applying to committed, that is another opportunity for you to really just hit that stride of excitement and looking forward to programs. So keeping that stage very short so that students can kind of move to the next step and start engaging with the pre-departure content, which, as we all know, is extremely important and necessary for them to go. It's just, yeah, it's definitely a great practice. And I see Christy has her hand raised.
This is first time for me to be a director. So will you be going over, like if somebody indicates Germany, will it trigger an email to me so then I can reach out to the student?
So that is something that I think, Margaret, if you can speak on who has access as program contacts, that will kind of, if you're collecting all of that information as the program contact for all of your programs, or if you are assigning all of the directors as the program contact, I think that can help us understand how we can answer that question.
Yeah, so all of the program directors are assigned as the program contact for their program. So yes, Christy, if anyone indicates interest in Germany, if anyone sends a message and I believe if they're applying to Germany, you'll definitely receive that message. Is that also the case if they're indicated interest in Germany, Leslie?
If they're interested in Germany, if they have favorited it, you will not get a message. However, oh no, everyone is a support user, so the view is everyone. I was going to say, if you had a different role in via TRM, you would have the ability to only see the students who have favorited or applied to your particular programs, which I think maybe is something that, Margaret, and if you have any questions, we'll have to figure out how everyone will best be in the system.
Yeah, that's something. I just moved all of the program directors from occasional to support, which I think maybe makes more sense, because like some of the program directors are also the institutional rep, so they'll definitely have to stay, support users. But I'm kind of going back and forth on whether it makes sense for program directors to only see their students or to see everyone, because last year we had a few, like some confusion if students were applying to multiple programs. It wasn't like that obvious to the program director that maybe like that message that they received was actually for another program director, right, because that student was just like sending the message to the system and they were in their queue.
Definitely. So, that just reminded me about specifically, Chrissy, to your point. So I'm just going to show you one quick area on the traveler dashboard. So back on the traveler dashboard, looking at the admin view, let me hide this guy. Under program preferences, if you're looking at, okay, I only want to see who has favorited my program. So even though I can see all travelers, I only want to see my program, who's favorited it. You have the ability to filter based on program favorite by utilizing this filter and clicking filter travelers. So you can see actually, and kind of maybe that's a filter that you save because you want to consistently go back to that group of who has indicated interest in my program only through, that's a part of the greater traveler count. So hopefully that's helpful. Any more questions? So I'm sure that well, first of all, I said a lot of things. I went through a lot of content. So here is what I am going to propose, and I will send the information to Margaret and she can kind of relay it to everyone since she has everyone's contact information. I'm going to be sending her our sandbox information so that you have the ability to play around with all of the functionality without disrupting the current and real data that's in USG's account. So I'm going to send that information and just invite you and encourage you to please play around either as an admin, as a traveler, as both, so that you can really get a good grasp on all of the functionality that we went through together. So that's really my next step after this call. Moving forward, we are actually going to be meeting 2 more times, once on the 21st of July and the next on the 28th of July, where we're going to be going through, as students are moving through the application process, how you can interact with that content, how you can take action on those students, on those applications, what you can do, how you can pull that information. We're going to talk about messaging in more detail, reporting in more detail, and we're also going to be covering just some areas of kind of that are helpful for you to understand as you're going through your specific processes. So anything in regards to applications, in regards to forms, and hopefully we can get to a good place where all of you feel comfortable in your own roles, how to move forward with your travelers. So that is kind of what's to come. Any questions there?